Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. This post has been a long time in the making. I'm kind of surprised I've never written about this before. Maybe I have and I just don't remember. Unfinished feeling. I feel like I don't know how to feel. And this may sound strange coming from a self identified, highly sensitive person. It's really hard to describe, but if you know, you know what I'm talking about. It's like I've always felt things too much, and I was aware of that from a young age. Like just getting really swept up in any, news story that I'd happen to see as I was walking, past the living room while my parents had the news on, and having that stay with me for, I mean, who knows how long. Like I could still remember stories that severely impacted me, like from I was a tween or something. I mean, if I think about it too hard, I could cry at a leaf on the floor. I definitely feel things, but then there's this weird sensation that's like, I feel like I don't feel enough at the same time. When someone says, just feel your feelings, it's almost like I don't really know what they're talking about, or at least I don't resonate with that wording, and I don't know why. Because no matter how intensely I feel something, I'm always left with the sensation that there's a trap door somewhere inside of me that the feeling didn't make it through. It's like this forbidden place that is trying to protect the deepest parts of me. And because of that, I have this weird, unfinished feeling with everything, with every experience that I know has impacted me. Just nothing feels closed. It feels like the gajillion open tabs that I have at all times on my computer. Um, no coincidence there, I'm sure. I mean, I've asked this question and I've been in so many beautiful coaching containers and groups, and I've just never been satisfied with an answer. I mean, I've been satisfied in that, I respect the answer given, but I've never felt like, oh, that scratched my itch, or that really helped me. And I've tried to stop thinking about it and just letting it go, but shocker, that didn't work. Um, I just can't escape this feeling that I'm not feeling enough, or I'm not feeling correctly, which is a red flag, right? Isn't that like the weirdest sentence? What is to feel correctly? Um, the sensation is like some sort of weird disconnect, like a severed pathway that abruptly stops feelings before they get to some sort of elusive, satisfying place that I'll never know. And the thing is, I mean, I feel like most of us have heard the stat. Takes around 90 seconds of the initial surge of a feeling or an emotion for the body's chemical response to occur. However, it says how long you experience a feeling can be influenced by your thoughts and how you choose to process. The 90-second window is the most intense part of the emotion. And then if you continue to dwell on, on a triggering thought or experience after the initial 90 seconds, you can prolong that feeling. Shocking. Okay, so dwelling. Am I dwelling? Apparently, you can choose to set aside your thinking and just let it go. Did you know that? That's what it says. Feelings are meant to share their message and then leave the body. Usually this happens in 90 seconds, according to Harvard-trained brain scientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Anything beyond that may be you reactivating it with your thoughts. So once the emotion has served its purpose, you can choose to set it aside and let it go. Okay, so maybe I'm dwelling, but I swear it feels more than cognitive overthinking. I swear it feels internal. It doesn't feel like it's just my head. It feels like a problem with feeling. I caught myself saying it just never feels complete. And then that perked my ears up. Is completion really the goal when it comes to feelings? And since I'm in a phase where I'm blaming everything good and bad in my life on my photography like an angsty teenager, I can't help but look to my practice. I'm doing on the inside what I do with my photo taking outside. Emotional bookmarking is what I've made up, but then I think now, because the term just sounded too catchy to me, and I was like, is this a thing? And I think it is a thing, but I didn't spend too much time looking into it, because if I did, then I would totally lose my train of thought and this would never get finished. The most frustrating part of this whole situation is feeling like I'm both the villain and the victim in this. The narrator and the character screaming at the person on the screen as they continue to walk into the creepy house. And it is I walking into the creepy house. And just because I'm able to understand what's happening doesn't mean I'm able to stop sucking air into that cavity. So it's like I have a high degree of awareness around what's going on and what might be contributing, but not high enough to know how to fucking stop and get out of this pattern, to slow this inertia. My background in neurolinguistic programming has been a really vital part in piecing this together. But at the end of the day, I'm still inside the bottle. It's hard to read yourself when you are the bottle and you're inside the bottle. So recently I met this beautiful human. Her name is Sylvia Bella, and she is a human design expert. And I met her in a creative women's retreat, and we are going to start working together. Actually, tomorrow is our first meeting in the human design mentorship. And P.S., I have a special collaborative post coming up. It'll be the next one. Talking all about human design and its capacity to heal. And if you want to hear that episode or get it delivered to your inbox through Substack, go to the show notes and hit subscribe so you can get that. I'm really excited to share her message and her expertise, because human design has been a really eye-opening portal to a deeper level of self-acceptance for me. That, and of late, diving a little bit into something called the Gene Keys has been super powerful. All of it has been exciting to learn about. I love learning about new things. I'm just one of those edutainment junkies. I love learning new things. And as powerful and fascinating as all of these new things are, ironically, none of it has told me anything I didn't already know about myself. But all of it has been healing. All of it has helped me not only give it a name, but have a way to hold it and a way to witness it and a way to feel a permission that I didn't know I needed in order to breathe easier within my life. Something to point to when I'm feeling out of sorts and be like, oh, that's why. And it's oddly soothing. I mean, not oddly, of course it's soothing. We all want to understand ourselves more or understand why things are happening in our lives the way they are. So going back to the bajillion tabs, I've had a bunch of new information in my system around gene keys and a refresher on human design based on my new relationship with Sylvia, and about a dozen books and blah 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 all around chakras and blah blah blah, like just so much stuff that I can really easily kind of snicker at. I'm like, oh my gosh, when I start describing it, I'm like, yeah, we just need to chill out. I just wanted to answer a question, a very specific question. But I wanted this question answered while contextually steeped in the details of my design, my human design, my gene keys that feel so resonant. And like, yes, of course, this is me. So I decided to remember that I live in 2025, and I turned to the contentious ChatGPT. Up until this point, the most I'd ever used ChatGPT was to plan my first trip to Europe. And it was actually wildly helpful because I was planning it for me and my mother, who has some mobility, constraints and stuff like that. And just having it help me find settings and locations that are more easily walkable and whatever. Anyway, it was great. But I hadn't really meaningfully used it since as intensely as that situation. So I asked it, what would you say to a highly sensitive person with gene key 28 and an open head and throat center in human design with emotional authority that feels like they still have trouble feeling satisfied or at peace with feeling their feelings? Oftentimes, things never feel complete, and every emotional experience can feel bookmarked or unfinished. Just not gonna lie, reading that question out loud it makes me feel a little insecure. To feel a little insecure, like just like judging myself with that question. But I have to share it. I need you to understand what the question was and how and why my eyes bugged out of my head with how helpful very quickly it spit out a response was. I'm going to read verbatim some of it. I won't read all of it. If you want to see the full, I copied and pasted the response in the post for this podcast episode in Substack. But it said, number 1, you were never meant to feel done. There's a deep myth, especially in creative and emotional healing spaces, that feelings are meant to resolve. That if you do it right, you'll reach a clean conclusion where a chapter closes and the next one opens with clarity and ease. But your emotional system, your whole design, in fact, doesn't work like that. You're built to feel in layers, not lines, experience emotions as weather, not tasks, and receive echoes and aftershocks, sometimes long after the initial feeling. For you, it is not about finality. It's about being fully present with the layer you're in today, even if it's a return to something you thought you had already processed. Number 2, some feelings will remain unfinished because they just aren't yours. With an open head and throat, you're a receiver of collective emotions and stories, not just personal ones. That sense of unfinishedness of there always being more to feel is partly because you're feeling your own history, ancestral echoes, and the edges of collective emotions rippling through the creative and relational field. You're simply wired to be in an ongoing conversation with life's larger emotional story. 3, satisfaction comes from fully inhabiting, not resolving. Your peace, your gene key 28 totality doesn't come from having everything tied up in a neat bow. It comes from knowing I was fully present with what the moment asked of me. I let myself touch the edge of this feeling even if I couldn't stay long. I let the feeling be part of my creative rhythm even if it's unfinished. Completion for you is about being fully there, not about making sense of it all. I needed to read that one a couple times because it almost felt like I could have written it. And at the same time, I was like, why was I pretending like that wasn't so? Or why was I bypassing that deep knowing of mine? My goodness. 4, you're wired for emotional bookmarking. That's not a failure. That sense of always bookmarking emotions, leaving them partially open, is part of your emotional authority. Your emotions are waves. They revisit themselves. Each time you return, you see something you missed before. It's not because you didn't feel enough. It's because your system feels in layers, and each pass brings a new view. You're not behind. You're not incomplete. You're in process, and you always will be. Yeah. Did I just like ChatGPT like a free counselor? Yeah, I'll just finish reading this last one before I recap. Feelings don't need to make sense to belong. Some feelings will never connect to a clear story. Some will never be fully explainable. They still deserve space in your body, your art, your life. The part of you that wants to understand every feeling before you let it move through you. That's your open head center searching for certainty where none is needed. So, ChatGPT, that was both brilliant and duh at the same time. Of course, we feel in layers. Of course, we feel echoes of the collective. Of course, deep presence is the most satisfying thing you could ever experience. Of course, we're always in process. And of course, feelings don't need to make sense to belong. I just didn't realize that I've been focusing so much on how my natural way of processing and the feelings that come with it must be the barrier to feeling peace and contentment and a general sense of completeness. Meanwhile, the way to peace and contentment is to stop vilifying the most natural and enduring parts of me. Like, this thorn has been in my side for decades. Well, maybe it's not fucking meant to go anywhere. Maybe your quote unquote problem is the exact gift. I've been vilifying the emotional bookmarking when that is one of my highest forms of creation, of experience, of processing. The bookmarking means I get to revisit and reach a level of intimacy with each layer anew every time I come back. It's my way of deepening into my vision and feeling, not redundant shackles that mean I have failed to feel completely, correctly, or fully. I feel that you can go to all of your struggle, all of your pain points, all of your dissatisfactions, and find a way to pull that thread up and up and up and up into a lighter expression, a more powerful expression of it. My aching means I'm alive and I feel. My restlessness means I have surging energy to experience life. My desire for totality is a life force hunger. I want all of it. My fear around mortality is the reason for the magnitude and reverence for the now, each and every now. My sometimes insufferable tendency to bring everything back to being everything and nothing at the same time shows me that I have the capacity to see and be with and hold both extremes at once. I've been so focused on how to get to a feeling of completion, of wholeness, that I skipped over the fact that they are not the same. I don't even want completion. I don't want to be finished with something. I don't want to be finished with anything, ever. I want to feel whole, undivided. Looking back and looking in, I can see that I actually feel a sense of wholeness often, but the trouble is, I'm so busy being whole that I've never thought to name it. And perhaps that means I'm doing it right. This feeling of rest and ease and peace, it visits me often, even though it feels like never. And it is in the moments where we blissfully stop questioning ourselves. Those moments where we forget we even are a self. Those moments that you're so in it, you forget you're even human. The times where we can stop dividing ourselves into the parts that are good or okay or bad. Rest and ease and peace and wholeness is only possible when we can embrace ourselves fully, when we become unconditional with all of who we are. That's when everything softens. That's when everything reveals itself. And only when we trust our ability to tolerate and even embrace the parts of us that we struggle with are we able to see that they are the gift. And only after that genuine recognition occurs might those parts transform into a different expression and a different perspective. So completion was never the point of that unfinished feeling. Resolution was never the point. I believe it was feeling wholly undivided in process, in feeling, forever. That is the gift. So I'm going to leave you with an invitation if you resonated with any of what I just said. What are you grateful will never be complete or resolved? What are you like, oh, thank goodness this will never be finished? What is that? Number 2, what process would you like to sit inside forever? What process are you unconditionally committed to being inside forever? And 3, can you take a part of you that feels like struggle and become unconditional with it being here? What might it turn into when it's fully seen and accepted? I am currently working on February's Nostalgia Now. If you are not a paid subscriber, Nostalgia Now is my monthly photographic journaling template, a one-of-a-kind template where I give you a Canva template with prompts, and you go through the photos that you took in the last month of your life, and you answer my prompts with pictures. And through this visual excavation and expression. You're able to really sink your teeth into what your life is right now, what the last few weeks of your life has looked like, and really bring that hindsight into the present and journal on what you would like to take with you into the next month. And I believe that these monthly check-ins with ourselves not only gives us something wonderful to do with those hundreds and thousands of photos we take every month instead of just accumulating them, but it gives us a way to pivot the ship each month into a sharper, more connected, aligned life that we're living with ourselves instead of like a yearly New Year's check-in. Let's do that a little bit more than once a year, shall we? So if you're interested in that, you could subscribe on my Substack. You can still subscribe for the free version of my Substack where you get the visual podcast episodes. So each podcast episode has a written post alongside of my art, my photography. So if you want that to come to your inbox, go ahead and hit subscribe on Substack. All right. That is it for you today. That is it for me today. I have to go pick up the kids, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week.
This has been an Awkward Sage production.